Michael Dinner, your co-showrunner and also a director on Justified City Primeval, which comes 8 years after the original run of Justified was last on the air. How did the idea arise to bring U.S. Marshal Raylan Givens back to TV?
Well, quite honestly, we did a show called Justified. As you said, we finished it 8 years ago. We thought we ended pretty well. We like to say we stuck the landing, and we were done. We moved on. It was a great ride. People love working with each other, but we told the story we wanted to tell. And I don't know, about 3 or 4 years after we finished Justified, I was approached by Elmore Leonard's son, Peter Leonard, about doing another project of Elmore's. There's this book, City Primeval, which is kind of a crown jewel, and it was one of his first Detroit crime novels. He came out of writing westerns, and Peter said, "Are you familiar?" I said, "Sure, we're familiar." We would bring it up in the room, and he said, "Would you be interested in doing it as a series?" So I started working on that, and actually was going to take it out as a 80s period piece, and got this call one day. I was shooting in Italy, and Tim Oliphant called up and said, "I'm on the set with Quentin, and I heard you're going out with City Primeval." I said, "Well, I'm playing around with it." He said, "We were talking how it would make a great year, in the life of Raylan Givens." And I said, "Well, that's not a bad idea. Let's talk. I'll be back in about 2 weeks. Why don't we talk about it?" And it kind of went away it was very complicated, the rights situation, and then a couple of years later, I was sitting down with FX, and they said, "Tim had talked to us about this." I said, "Well, I was about to talk to you about doing City Primeval, but let's talk about it." And lo and behold, they really wanted to do it as a year in the life of Raylan Givens, and we put it together. It took about a year to clear up the rights situation, and then during the pandemic, we put a room together, and there you go. It was really an attempt to not to go back to what we'd done, not to reboot Justified, but to kind of catapult Raylan into this world, into this other, show, another series called City Primeval, and we had a ball doing it.
And this taking place later in his life and career, like how did you want Raylan to have changed or evolved by the time we catch up with him here?
Well, look, I love doing Elmore's material, and his characters, they don't evolve that much. I mean, it's incremental, And but we did think that, Justified was really the first act in this character's life. It's the story of You Can't Go Home Again. And we did think there was a second act, that this is the second act. And we pick him up 10 years later, and the world's changed. I mean, or I don't know if so much the world's changed, but our perception of the world's changed. I mean, to do a show about law enforcement in 2023 is difficult. So the world's changed. Raylan was always a walking anachronism, so that was certainly part of kind of the existential story that we're telling. And I like to say that the road in front of him is a lot shorter than the road behind. So I think that there was an emotional and existential story to tell about a guy who's a little bit further down the road, and that was kind of the heart and soul of the piece.
And moving Raylan to Detroit for this story, how did you want to evolve the visual style or tone of Justified, or did you really?
We had a history with the show, and certainly I know how we shot it, but this is 10 years later. It's a different story. It's not Justified, it's City Primeval. It has some of the same tone that Elmore's material has. What I love to say about Elmore's stuff is that you don't see the joke coming, you don't see the violence coming, you don't see the emotion coming, sometimes in the same breath. But I think it's in some ways, I don't know, a little bit more adult. It's a darker than Justified, and the storytelling and the style kind of takes off from what we did in Justified, but I think it evolves.
And of course, Raylan wasn't the main character in the novel City Primeval, so you made that adjustment. What other kinds of adaptations and adjustments did you make to the story to kind of accommodate it for TV?
Look, the book was written, whatever, 43 years ago. So it certainly needed to be updated and put in our world. Raylan was not in the story. There's a character in the story by the name of Raymond Cruz. I mean, this book was a Detroit crime novel, but it's kind of, as a lot of Elmore stuff, crime stuff, it kind of pays homage to, his writing Westerns. In fact, the original title of the book is City Primeval or High Noon in Detroit. Um, so, the original character in the book was a character with the name of Raymond Cruz, and he was kind of the literary daddy or granddaddy to or the experiment to what became Raylan Givens and Fire in the Hole, the story that Justified was based on. So it was really, dropping him in this world. Some of the characters exist in the book, but they had to be kind of enlarged or updated. Detroit's a character, in the story, I think. And what we're trying to do, like I said, is we love this story and we love these characters, and we wanted to drop, Raylan into the story.
And you have a primary villain, which is always been kind of Justified. Like one of the key draws is great villains, and you cast Boyd Holbrook in the role of the Oklahoma wild man, Clement Mansell. What what made you cast him? What made him right for the role? What did he bring to it?
Well, let's talk about the character to begin with. What I think is cool about this character and kind of differentiates him from the antagonist in Justified, Boyd Crowder, was that that Clement Mansell's a nihilist, and in a way is more dangerous for Raylan because he doesn't understand him. I mean, Raylan understood Boyd because the two of them mined coal together until when they were 18 years old. So this is a character who is unhinged, unpredictable, and Raylan's slowed down a little bit. What I loved about Boyd when we first started talking to him, Boyd Holbrook, is that he felt like there was an unpredictability about him. There was he got the joke, he got the irony, and an explosiveness about him. And I think he's really good in this. I mean, the story itself is really a three-hander between him and Raylan and Carolyn Wilder, who's his defense attorney, who he knew in the past. And I think the three actors are fantastic together.
Now, interestingly, the production was affected a couple times by these surprising incidents that happened, like a shooting incident, an incendiary device at one point. How complicated is that to deal with as a showrunner, just to kind of keep the show running?
Well, here's the good news: our scripts were done when we started, and we had to pivot a lot. We also had 139 COVID cases. So it was really, and we never shut down because of COVID. We would pivot. I got COVID for the first time, and I've been really careful for for a couple of years, and we had to just be fast on our feet. If you're supposed to shoot something, you have an actor who's available for a day and a half, and someone gets COVID, you got to figure it out. I think we had 5 directors of photography on this show because one would go down, someone would come in, another one would go. It was insane. None of that brought us down, but then we had an incident, that people know about. There was a shooting that occurred on a Friday night or a Thursday night in Chicago. It's a city that I love, that I've shot a lot of things in, and when you're in an urban environment, things can happen. It happened on this shoot. Tim Oliphant and I were pretty close to the action. I got tackled when these 3 cars drove through the middle of our set, firing AK-15s at each other. I looked over the wheel of a Condor and saw it, and my first response was, I've been shooting shootings for a long time. We've gotten it right in Hollywood. So, but yeah, it was tough. We ended up not shutting down because of COVID, but shutting down because of that for 3 or 4 days, and people were rattled, and we wanted to make sure that the crew and the cast was safe. And we shut down, and then we were able to come back. But it was very difficult. I mean, once we shut down because of the schedules with the actors, we were shooting multiple units and just, like I said, kind of turning on a dime.
Well, I'm glad the show persevered from there, and we got Justified City Primeval out of it. And thank you so much for talking to me about it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.